Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne Sportsnet production, available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
Well, it's finally spring. With the warmer weather comes a new season of Major League Baseball. In addition to the playoffs in the NBA and NHL, our friends at BetOnline.ag have got you covered when it comes to cashing in on the odds. Get in on the action at BetOnline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of the PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am currently out on vacation, recharging batteries, but just because I'm recharging the batteries, we still got business to take care of. In the meantime, we'll be playing some of the most requested Steve Austin Show classics that have been locked away in the archives. I got a great one for you this week, and here's my producer, Sean, to tell you all about it.
Greetings, and welcome to a classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. Producer Sean bringing you episode number 141 with superstar Bill Dundee. Original air date August 12th, 2014. Steve's got a lot of classic Memphis wrestling personalities in his catalog, and I think it's definitely important to revisit that territory and bring those out here on the classic episodes, because there's some really cool stuff that Steve talks about with these guests, so you might be hearing some more of those as we go along. But for this week, it's superstar Bill Dundee, a wrestler that was very instrumental in Steve's development in the Texas and Tennessee territories, working under Jerry Jarrett and World Class and USWA. Bill Dundee, a big star in his own right in that area, having many epic battles with Jerry Lawler, either across the ring or as a tag team, which we'll talk about in just a second here. But Steve got to catch up with Bill Dundee here on this episode. He had somewhat of a presence in the late 80s in the NWA territory, as well as a manager in WCW in 1993 for Lord William Regal. He was known as Sir William back then. But Steve definitely talks about his epic feud with Jerry Lawler. Bill Dundee was also in a scaffold match. I don't think it was the first scaffold match, but it was definitely one of the earliest scaffold matches that happened against none other than Coco Beware, or as he was known as, Coco Ware. Also, Steve talks with Bill about the Tupelo Concession Stand Brawl. As I mentioned, Bill and Jerry Lawler are often adversaries, but also tag team partners, and in this particular instance, the duo took on the Blonde Bombers, Larry Latham and Wayne Ferris, better known as Moondog Spot and the Honky Tonk Man, in an epic event known as the Tupelo Concession Stand Brawl. And this was in 1979, and if you can find footage of it on YouTube, which is out there, it's quite the event. Commentated on by the legendary Lance Russell, and a lot of people say that it was kind of one of those small events that set the course for ECW and hardcore wrestling as we know it today. Just crazy brawling all throughout the concession stand, and there is tables and stools and mustard being thrown everywhere. So you should check that out. Bill Dundee, awesome wrestler, and he is the guest today on a classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. Today in Steve Austin history, today being April 23rd, we start off in 1992 in Bluefield, West Virginia. Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes defeated WCW TV champion Steve Austin and Larry Zbyszko in a bunkhouse match. In 1993 in Mount Joliet, Tennessee, WCW NWA Tag Team Champion Steve Austin and Brian Pillman defeated, you thought I was going to say Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas. No, they defeated Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Too Cold Scorpio. There you go. 1995 in Atlanta, Georgia at Center Stage, I believe. Could be wrong on this. Steve Austin, with Colonel Robert Parker in his corner, defeated Jim Duggan in a first-round match for the U.S. title when Parker grabbed Duggan's foot as Duggan hit a back suplex into the ring, into a bridge, and did the whole wrestler falls on top of another wrestler and gets their shoulders pinned as they are trying to pin somebody else sort of finish. I think I mentioned before that Steve Austin lost his first round match to Duggan, but I was wrong. I think he eventually lost to Randy Savage, but I don't have my results in front of me. I just have this result from 1995. That's all I have. But that aired on the WCW main event. Moving over to the WWF in 1999 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, in the Sky Dome, WWF World Champion Steve Austin and The Big Show defeated The Rock and Triple H. And finally, in 2001 in Denver, Colorado, check out this tag team match right here. A lot of huge Attitude Era talent WWF World Champion Steve Austin, WWF Intercontinental Champion Triple H with Stephanie McMahon, Edge, and Christian defeated Matt and Jeff Hardy, the Hardy Boys, as well as the WWF Tag Team Champions, the Brothers of Destruction, Undertaker, and Kane, when Triple H pinned Matt after Austin interfered behind the referee's back and hit the Stone Cold Stunner. And this was at a Monday Night Raw taping in Denver, Colorado. That is your day in Steve Austin history for April 23rd. Of course, I got my information from thehistoryofwwe.com. All right, stick around. Coming right up, we got Bill Dundee, superstar Bill Dundee, on a classic episode of The Steve Austin Show.
With the spring season finally here, right now is the most exciting time of the year in the NBA and the NHL. The playoffs. To get in on all the action, sign up today for a free account at betonline.ag and use the code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. Over in the NBA playoff scene, can anyone take down Golden State? What about the Rockets? How far will they go? Are the Nuggets a real deal in the postseason? And don't forget about the Bucks and Celtics. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. Get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code PodcastOne or text BETNOW to 238-669 to receive a 50% welcome bonus. That's betonline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partners of the PodcastOne Sports Net.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
How long did your in-ring career last, Bill? Jesus, over 30 years?
Yeah, I started in 1964, and I'm kind of still doing it.
So are you still getting in the ring and having matches?
Yeah, still pretty fair at it, too. According to say so myself. Now, do I do the stupidity that some of the kids do today? I try to watch some of them wrestling shows, and do you think No, I don't even attempt that. I mean, you know what I mean? The last time I was going to do that bombs away off the top rope, I climbed up onto the turnbuckle, and I looked out, and I thought, what am I doing? So I just climbed back down. I don't know what the people thought, but I didn't dive off, didn't do nothing stupid. I just climbed back down, hooked back up with a guy, and said, let's go. So...
Hey, but you know what? You've always ran your career like that. You never really took any. I mean, you probably took in your share of bumps that didn't feel so good, but you never went out of your way to take a crazy bump that was going to thrill or excite the crowd on a suicide mission. I mean, seems to me, in the times that I worked with you back in the day when I came in to Memphis, to Nashville in '90. And you were already an established veteran working on top with Lawler and other people selling out houses, Mid-South Coliseum, among other things. But you've always been a guy that tried to learn how to work and tell a story in the ring and rely on getting over and using sound psychology in a hell of a damn match. And also the business was perceived as being, quote unquote, real back in, but you never took stupid bumps.
No, Bobby Shane broke me in with that way back in Australia, and when you came over and booked for Jim Barnett, and me and Joe was Barnes, just like all young kids were, for that era, was doing stupid stuff. And he come to me, he said, Bill, you only have so many bumps in your body, my man. He said, slow them down, and when you ever get somewhere where you're working on top and they mean something, then that's when you do them. You're trying to draw money. Just don't go out there and have fun with yourself taking silly bumps, because one day you'll land wrong, and that'll be all she wrote. So I kind of learned that before I got here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, it's real interesting. I don't know how much you keep in touch with today's current product, but, Daniel Bryan is he's a really, really good worker, but somewhat of a cruiserweight style worker, and a lot of high risk maneuvers, but puts his body in harm's way a lot. And now, he finally worked his way up to the top of that WWE ladder, and now sidelined with a neck injury, and he underwent his first surgery. He's fixing to go into a second surgery, I guess, in the next couple of months after that first one settles down. But, my point is, and I say this with all due respect to Daniel Bryan, but when you put your body on the line, all of a sudden you get to your prime money-making years and you're on the sidelines. You know as well as I do, Bill, when you ain't working, you ain't getting paid. I don't know what the current system is, but back in our day, if you didn't work, you wasn't making no money. And if you wasn't making no money, it ain't like nobody's going to come over and hand you some groceries.
No, it was, that's exactly what it was. So, I mean, and the guy I worked with most here, as you know, was Jerry Lawler, and he's a hell of a worker, and he didn't want to do all that silly stuff either. I mean, a flying head scissors and a drop kick was pretty big for what we did. Or you may take the back drop over the top rope, but you're really not doing that. You're not landing on the floor. You're backing into the rope. The guy, you hook the top rope, and you take the bump from the apron to the floor. It's not like some of them today. They're landing on the floor. Well, look at old Bobby Eaton. There's another guy. High-risk maneuver way back when before anybody else was doing it. Hell, he can hardly turn his neck. He can hardly walk. It's just catch it up with you when you get to around 50.
Man, he's one of my favorites of all time, and it was your son-in-law. Or is he still your son? Is he still your son-in-law?
Yeah. Basically, I don't think we get along too good, but they're still technically married. Yeah.
But the Midnight Express and him specifically, and I won my first TV title from him in Atlanta, Georgia, at WCW. But is he pretty stove up right now? And I've heard he had a few heart issues as well.
Yeah. I mean, well, the lifestyle. What we used to do back in the day. Some people did more stuff than others, but drinking was probably the worst thing that we all did. Whiskey, beer, whatever. And you have to slow that down. I mean, I'm 70 and still getting in the ring and doing a little. Still weigh 208 pounds of solid steel and sex appeal. You ask me and I'll tell you that. But so, I mean, but I still enjoy what I do, but I will not work with an idiot. If I get to the show and I don't know anybody and say, hey, brother, have you seen my act? This is what we're going to do, and that's what we do. Nothing stupid. I don't try to hurt him, and I'm not having him hurt me.
But, Bill, with all the years that you've been around, and you started, what, was it 62 or 64? 62?
Yes, yeah. Well, kind of 64 was basically when we're just getting going. 62, 64 was when Barnett came to Australia.
Right.
We did jobs for him.
And then you got noticed and working and putting guys over on television. And then Jarrett, right. Who was it? Jarrett noticed you and brought you over. But my question is, Bill, through everything you've seen, and back in the day when I came to USWA, I was drinking a little bit of beer, and that was par for the course. I mean, pretty much, and this is a true story. In about every car, the guys are drinking beer on the way to the next town or on the way home, actually. Everything was one shot. I was based out of Nashville. But, as the years went on, things escalated. And then all of a sudden, you get introduced to, hey, there's a pill there, there's a drug here, this, that, whatever. You've seen, both of us have seen a lot of guys pass by the wayside. So what kept you, going so long? How were you able to resist the temptation? Or were you always just a, hey, say no to drugs guy? Because I know you'd have your drinks because I had a few beers with you. But now at 70 years of age, you've seen a lot of guys do a lot of stupid things.
Right. But I always was lucky enough to have an office job. Right. So when they were nursing the hangover or whatever it was they were doing, I had to be at the office. And then you go home and eat lunch, you get in your car and you drive to the town. Monday on Memphis was Monday night. Louisville Tuesday after night. Wednesday, Evansville. Thursday, once a month, Lexington Rupp Arena or a spot show. Tupelo Friday, Jonesboro Saturday night, and the Memphis TV Saturday morning, and Jackson on the way home something. So we never technically stopped. When I say we, Jerry Jarrett and Bill Dundee, because he didn't go to the towns, I did. So we would lay everything out, do what we did, and Lawler would only come Memphis Monday and Louisville Tuesday, and then he kind of took off. So I was the workhorse of this area for a long time, just 24/7, and Eddie Marlin. So I didn't have time to do the other stuff. Now I like to drink my beer and just like a car coming home like everybody else. But I never really have I done stupid stuff. Yeah. But not go on stupid stuff. Let's put it that way. I went to a party and somebody said, "Hey, do this." I have done it. Never did the pills. Never liked that kind of feeling. So the other stuff was white stuff. Was sometimes you'd stay awake. But anyway. Right. But no, it never appealed to me to do that every day. And I've seen guys do it every day. Yeah, and I have too. And it's, and don't get me wrong, I've been around the horn and I talk very openly when I was living a little bit fast. But that was a short-lived period of time and I didn't see any long-term future in that. So, I was always more kind of in the drinking crowd. Hey, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, Bill, because I was thinking about starting this conversation off. I was like, man, I'm talking to the superstar Bill Dundee, a guy who had a tremendous influence in my career. And, I read your book, and I've got it right in front of me. Bill Dundee wrote a book probably about 2 years ago, and it says, if you don't want the answer, don't ask the question, is Bill Dundee's life story. And, man, through the career that you had, back in the day, born in Scotland and ended up over in Australia, I always thought you were from Australia, but you've been a farmer, a cowboy, you joined the circus, you started training for, basically it was shoot fighting. Back in the day, got in the business of pro wrestling, now back to the circus. And you've taught so many people how to work over the years. I remember that when I rolled into USWA territory, I guess the name had just changed, and Jerry had just brought Fritz out in Dallas. And I come rolling in, Mid-South Coliseum, and I was greener than grass. I'd been working 2 months, and it wasn't very long after that I started working with the superstar Bill Dundee himself. And I tell you what, you know the deal, Bill, because
What are you? You're 5'7", you said 209 pounds, twisted steel, right?
Yeah.
Sex appeal?
That's it.
Hey, you know, an idiot like me, and you've met a bunch like me, but I think I was a pretty good dude back in the day, but I come in ignorant. 6'1", 6'2", 250 pounds, former football player. I'm thinking, okay, I'm a lot bigger than this guy. You know, I shouldn't sell this or this, that, or whatever, and barely knew how to work a high spot. Chris Adams taught me how to bump, taught me about 2 wrestling holds, and the rest, as you know, is on the job training. And you were always very, very patient with me and very giving in the ring. And you always got yours, and you always stayed. Well, that's a testament to you staying over for over 30 years. But, dude, what goes through your mind when you get in there with a young crowbar like myself and it's like, okay, here we go again. I got to show this kid how it's done.
Don't get me wrong, the people, you had the biggest set of legs. I mean, when I say scared me, you never scared me to death. I said, if this big bastard falls on me, it'll just hurt accidentally.
Yeah.
I mean, you with solid muscle, what did you weigh, 250?
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, and I was 208 at the best, 210 when I really thought I was a monster. So my 200-pound frame, and people say, wow, wrestling's this, wrestling's that. When your opponent outweighs you by 70 pounds and he just tackles your ass, it's very shattering. I mean, when we do the double knockout, whether you was going down or me, I got the worst of it because I was running into a brick wall.
Yeah.
So I got to be very gentle here and very careful. So you're just careful, but we didn't do stupid stuff. Yeah, was you a little clumsier than me on some things? Yeah, because you was trying to, just getting going, and things that we did, it was awkward to you, wasn't awkward to me. After 40 years of the business, you can go to somebody and say, hey, this is real easy. But when you start, you think to yourself, I'm never going to get this. And then one day it just hits you, and off you go, and you become a star someplace, and look at you, worldwide star. Did we think that would happen when you come out of Dallas, Texas? No. We thought, wow, this kid doesn't kill somebody, it'll be a wonder. But anyway, you made it, and here we are.
Not just kill somebody in the ring, but kill the damn territory. Because, back in the day, we was going to the same towns every single week. It was the same towns over and over again. And that's the thing that I loved about breaking in that territory was you were forced to learn to work as soon as possible because you couldn't work, like right now, the WWE. And I'm not speaking disparagingly. I'm just talking about today's system versus the other system. You're working that weekly territory. WWE is a giant loop. And you might be 30, 60, 90, 120 days from getting back to that next town or in close proximity. You had to change your matchup every single night of the week. And if you're in a program, you damn sure had to change it up every night of the week. So that really helped me get up to speed was all those towns after another.
Right. And they were the same ones. Memphis was Monday, Louisville was Tuesday, Evansville, Indiana was Wednesday, Thursday once a month was Lexington Rupp Arena, Tupelo Friday, Jonesboro Saturday night, and sometimes a spot show here and there. So we was going to the same half a dozen towns, and everybody got rich. Jarrett got so friggin' rich, he built a 17,000 square foot house.
I gotta ask you the question about the 17,000 square foot house, because in your book you talk about the big house on the hill. It caused a lot of heat within the territory. What was the story behind the big house?
Well, his mother said he had an illusion when he was building it. He told everybody, he said, I'm going to build a new house. Watch when you start making a few dollars. I mean, you've done it. You paid off your little one you had, then you moved to a bigger one. As we got more successful with the house, got bigger. That is a natural progression. Everybody does that. I start off in a little 3-bedroom one with Jamie and his mother and his sister over in Hendersonville, in the poorest part of Hendersonville, and worked up to a bigger house on the hill up there. Nothing like Jarrett's, but just about a mile from him. So we had kind of got to the bottom of the hill. So he said he was going to build a house. And he decided, you got to give the guy credit. He laid out the plans. He went to an architect. He drew the whole thing from go to woe. He designed the whole thing. And it just seemed like it got bigger every time he went to do something to it. And it ended up a monstrous thing. I mean, it was the actual part he has maybe lived in was 7,000 square feet, but his offices and his ballroom and all the things that was around it, the house itself were the 3 bedrooms, the kitchen, the bathroom, whatever else, and that was about 7,000 or 8,000 square feet. So, you know, and as Jerry Lawler said, Bill, you built one wing of that, and I built the other, and Jarrett would get mad at you in the good old days if you said that, but now he'll make jokes about it. Say, hey, Lawler Dundee built that big house. So anyway, he sold it to a guy, and I think the guy went broke trying to pay for it. So he got his money back. He's happy. Everybody's happy, and we still talk.
But it did cause a rift because at that time, Jerry Lawler was a partner with Jerry Jarrett, and obviously he felt like he was getting not the short end of the stick, but the short side of the payoff.
Well, I think technically, we know how it was back in the day. They got the first bite of the apple. Well, this is where he kind of screwed up. He had a housewarming party, and he had Bobby Bear sing there, and he had the Nashville Symphony Orchestra come play the music. Country singer was singing for him. His wife wanted the orchestra. He invited Lance Russell, Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler, Stan and Steve, the fabulous ones, and I believe that was about all the rest of us. So when Lawler showed up, you could see the look on his face that he was pissed off. You see this house? Oh, yeah, I see it every day. I come to the office here. I live in it half as much as Jarrett does in the office part. You know what I mean? That's where the office was. So that was when he went back and I guess put his little wheels to working, and him and Jarrett got together. They made another deal, and we become more big partners. But Jerry Lawler never ended up with a 17,000 square foot house, but the one he has in Memphis now, but I think Vince bought that one, is pretty big. He has a nice place down here now.
Yeah, but it was a great story in the book because it was a real eye-opener for Jerry Jarrett and a power play because Jerry Lawler was going to split off unless y'all could have a come-to-Jesus meeting and level out the playing field a little bit.
Right. And we went to TV that day, and nobody was there.
What happened? Lawler had everybody on hold?
Well, yeah, he had them all on hold. They were in Memphis, but the reason we knew about it, my daughter was dating Bobby.
Yep.
And you know Bobby. He's one of the nicest, country, honest people you'll ever be around. Yep. To a fault. And it was really a fault that he did this because Lawler said, don't talk to nobody till we get the meeting with Jarrett. Well, Bobby felt guilty, I guess, so he tells Donna. Donna tells her mother. So Beverly calls Jarrett and says, Jerry Lawler is going to take your territory. And Jerry just said, you don't have enough brains to take my territory. Okay? That was the start of that. So he talks to me. He says, do you know anything about anything going on? And I said, no, what happened? He said, well, Beverly just called and said they're going to steal the territory from him. I said, well, I don't know. So he started calling people, and anyway, all the boys showed up in Memphis. Lance and Jarrett and Jerry Lawler all had the meeting at the TV. They get their stuff all sorted out, who was getting who was getting what. Bill got the shaft as usual. I didn't get none of that on the part. They still worked. But anyway, that was all right. So they got together, they kissed, they made up. All the boys showed up, and it was Lawler, Jarrett promotions.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
The NBA playoffs are here, and PodcastOne Sportsnet is taking you courtside with the best podcast in the game. Get slam dunk coverage from the best in the biz, like Dan Patrick and Rich Eisen, as well as Danny LaRue on Real GM Radio. Then turn over for some laughs with Shaq on the Big Podcast. Hit the buzzer and download new episodes of these shows and more every week on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne Sportsnet.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Hey, you credited Bobby Shane with, saying, hey, man, the body's only got so many bumps in it. But it was at a time when you were, I can't remember what the territory was, but you said that Red Bastien and Mark Lewin really helped you as far as the psychology of working goes. Yeah. What were those guys able to teach you? What did they impress upon you?
Well, for the day and the era of what they thought I was little, Red Bastien was small compared to what came to Australia. Courtesy of Kayla, Mark Lewin, Killer Kowalski, Waldo Von Erich. That was the type of heels. And Red was a little bitty. Well, not little bitty. I mean, I'm a little bitty for the rest of them. He was probably 5'10", 210 pounds, 215 at the most. He would say, Bill, you can't go in there with the same thing that we just explained to you and let them big guys beat you around and drop elbows on you when even though they're working, it takes a toll on you and do them silly bumps. I mean, if I slam a guy 250, it's a little hard for me to do that. He picks my little ass up and just throws me through the mat. And you've seen it done when people got power slammed, or, Sid was bad at it. He'd pick you up by the feet and try to drive you through the mat. That power bomb thing. All that hurts when you're little, and that's what they said. Don't take the silly bumps and don't let people do it to you. So they were very good at that. And Mark Lewin, it was a sleeper hold, so there was nothing real dangerous in that. He shot you off to the ropes, widening behind you, put you to sleep, and that was it. So, but they took bumps when they were trying to do them, but they never did silly stuff.
But what was the secret to when you came over and started working with Jarrett, and you were putting the guys over in Australia, you come over, you end up in Tennessee, and your good buddy George Barnes comes in, and you guys start off as a tag team. Now, George ended up getting homesick about 3 or 4 months in, and then goes back to Australia, right?
Right.
Okay, so then that leaves Bill Dundee by himself, and you're not the superstar yet. But explain to me what and Lawler had taken a hiatus. He was out of the territory when you and George came in. Y'all got over, and y'all ''got over big because y'all was a very physical tag team with a lot of intensity. But what is the key to you getting over in that territory at 5'7", 215 pounds, say at the time, to get over like you did? Because, I watch TV today, and I watch a lot of guys struggle to get over. So I'm asking you what your secret was to getting over back in the day, being your size.
Okay, we got here, and George was probably 6 foot even and 225, 230 at his heaviest. He's usually between 225, 230. But he was 6 feet tall. I was 5'7" in my wrestling boots. I'm probably not 5'7" in the bare feet. Who knows? But anyway, I thought I was 6'8".
Yeah.
So the very first time Christine Jarrett saw me, we walked into the office, and Nick Goulas had just built a brand new office up on 8th Avenue. They'd moved from the Sam Davis Hotel. And nobody told us. We got to the Sam Davis Hotel and went to see the wrestling office, and it said, "Wrestling office, offices of Nick Goulas and Roy Welsh." And we thought, wow, there's nobody here. But the whole thing was cleaned out. So this old man that worked the elevator, you see the movies and they have the elevator operator, the old man that works the elevator. They had one of them at the Sam Davis. So we went up to the thing, we come back, and we said, "Where did the wrestling go? Where's the wrestling?" And this old man says to us, "Oh, he moved up on the 8th Avenue North." Well, we have no car. We've just arrived in Nashville. So where the hell is 8th Avenue North? He said, "About 2 miles up there, 8th Avenue. You'll see it. Just go out there." So we walk up to the next. So then we get up there, and here's this nice, beautiful office built in that part of town, and you can stoop that like dog's balls. So, it has a fence around it. The doors are all locked. After we got to work for him, we knew why all this was the way it was. But anyway, we thought, why is he in jail here? Everything's locked. All the gates are locked. The doors are locked. So anyway, we're yelling at people in the seats, but nobody's up. They don't know who we are. We're yelling at them to open the door. So Mike Duncan comes to the door and says, "Hi, help you?" Said, "Yeah, tell Nick Goulas the 2 Aussies are here." So anyway, they bring us in. So when we walk into the room where the meeting room, Christine Jarrett says, "That little one needs to be a good guy.
Right.
He's too cute to be a heel." Well, they didn't know it's a bad guy. Nick talked dirty and clean, and she called good and bad, no heels and baby faces. But anyway, so she says, "He needs to be a good guy. He's too cute to be a bad guy." And I said, No, Miss Christine, no, I'm a bad guy. So I didn't want to be a baby face. When you start, it's more fun being a heel. So anyway, she said, "No, you definitely need to be a good guy." So we didn't see Jerry Jarrett for 2 weeks when we got here. We had to work for Nick. And oh God, was that an experience? George Goulas and Nick, and that's my boy Nick. Nick would say, "George, that's my boy. You look after him. You work with him. You look after him." And oh God, anyway, he worked with Harley Race in Nashville, and they went it was about 40 minutes thing, a DQ or some goofed up finish. Harley had to go save George from the people because they wanted to beat up George. They knew he couldn't beat Harley Race, and Harley did a job before people even thought about it back in them days.
Right.
So you get him back to the dressing room and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that was an experience. So they wanted me kind of babyface from day one, but George and me got over his heels, so they left me that day. When George went home, Jarrett come to me and he says, "We're switching your ass, whether you like it or not." I said, "Well, okay. What you want me to do?" So that's what we did. The interns come in with Ken Remy and beat up Eddie Marmon. And George and me had worked the program with Eddie and Tojo. So when I hit the ring to tell Ken not to do it, he pushed me and I nailed him, and they jumped on me, and Eddie came and saved me type thing. I got up you know how it was done in Tennessee. So that was the start of Bill Dundee, just Bill Dundee, good guy. Now that was 1976. We brought Big Bad John in here, who had been a bad guy. Black outfits, black leather coat, steel helmet, everything he wore with Mark Lewin in Australia for 15 years.
Right.
So I knew him over there. So Jerry Jarrett, this being 1976, the bicentennial year of America. And you know Jerry was, he was very smart. So he comes and says to Big Bad John, we're going to switch you babyface. And John's, well, I ain't a babyface. I'm a heel. He said, yeah, I know that. But we're going to put this little cute devil with you. And he's going to do all the selling and tag you. And you're going to come in and kick ass. And we're going to name you the Bicentennial Baby. And you're going to wear the big top hat, the red, white, and blue outfit, and all that stuff. So he said, what do you think? You're the boss. So on Memphis TV, the first week, we go down there. And so says, oh, we got Big Bad John here. He's now the Bicentennial Baby. Blah, 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 blah. So John comes out. Hey, they all talk like that back there. So what he says, that's real. If I'm going to be the Bicentennial Baby, this gentleman right here, Bill Dundee, is now Bill Superstar Dundee from this day on. And people just started calling me Bill Superstar Dundee because he said it on Memphis TV, and here we are, 30 years later.
But so he gives you the nickname Superstar, and that man, yeah. That's just a great name, Superstar Bill Dundee. And you know, obviously, I have tremendous respect for you. So you got that going for you. You had a very solid work style inside the ring. And here's the thing, and I think you touched upon this a few minutes ago. You're 5'7", but you, in your mind, you're 6'8", and you didn't take any crap from nobody. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about your work, as a babyface, you had tremendous fire, which you have to have. You got to be able to sell. You got to have fire. You got to be able to work. As a heel, you had a mean streak. You're a cocky, arrogant, and that's money, especially kind of coming out of a 5'7" dynamo.
You have to have a mean streak, Steve, especially when you're smaller than everybody. You know how it is.
Yeah. Hey, did you always have that tremendous working punch? Because I go back to watching all of your work, but I love the battles between you and Lawler. We'll talk about Lawler a little bit because you kind of go on record saying, hey, man, if there's no Lawler, there's no Dundee, because half of your career was Dundee and the other half was Lawler. And a pivotal part you guys each played in each other's careers in such a tremendous feud, a lifelong feud, a 30-year feud. How did you get that working punch so damn crisp? Whether it was a left or right, you had that thing dialed in 24/7. And there's a lot of people, you watch the show today, and you don't see a whole lot of textbook badass working punches.
No, and Lawler had one too.
Yes.
So, but here was the thing, we cultivated them, I think, on each other, and we never really, what would we say? If we spotted one another, well, so be it. Nobody bitched, and nobody came back crying, and nobody, I mean, you know how it is when the million the thing, you do the look on your face. You can tell when the guy's being spotted.
Yeah.
So I just did it. I was always pretty good with the right hand, not so hot with the left, but I'm a southpaw anyway, so if I box you, I have a southpaw style, so I'm all right. And I have no real left. I couldn't knock you out with my left hand if I was to hit a 10-year-old kid. I just have no left. It's all right. And I think it was just that's how it was working too.
But how'd you put together your style of work? Because, I mean, for a large part of your career was basically stand-up brawling, but you prided yourself in your wrestling skills, as evidenced by, many of your matches with Tony Charles. You love to wrestle, but a lot of your part was stand-up and brawl, and a lot of that was Lawler because that's the way he worked. So what was the true Bill Dundee style? Because you could do it all. What did you prefer?
Oh, I think I really enjoyed the matches with Billy Robertson, Tony Charles, and the Les Thorntons, and all the guys that could actually do that. That is a whole lot more. Me and Nick Botwinkle, this is how you can get the people. I worked with Botwinkle in Lexington, Kentucky, Rupp Arena, $17,000 house back in the good old days. That was a lot of people. We wrestled. This was the finish. We wrestled for 40 minutes, and we'd break. You push the guy in the ropes, you'd step back and break, and he'd step back and break, and we'd shake hands. And we did all the things. The people forgot about Nick being half-ass heel.
Yes.
So we just wrestled and counter hold and move behind, take one another, damn covered up, blah, blah, everything. The finish was, at the time to go, I backed him back into the ropes, put my hands up and stepped back, and he went whack. Then I went 1, 2, 3, and we had a riot.
Yeah.
They were so much into enjoying the wrestling part, so they will, if you give it to them, they will buy it, and that was the finish. If you did that today, people would laugh at you.
Yeah,
Say this will never work. But it will work if you have the people, if you're over and they're buying what you're selling, it will work.
You brought up the name of Billy Robinson, and I've got some Billy Robinson questions for you because he was a guy that I was never around, never met him, didn't really even catch his body of work until literally, Bill, about 6-7 months ago, and I'm watching every single thing I can on YouTube on this guy. He was absolutely incredible and one of probably the best catch wrestlers of all time. And I also heard he was a bad stick of wood if, he got you in the ring, and he was extremely tough. But God dang, what a worker, and I'm mad that I missed so much of his work. Tell me about your matches with him and also about him as a person.
Well, Billy was one of them guys that was actually a lot bigger than Billy looked.
Right.
Some guys are just, he was a big guy. He was 6'2" or 3", and 245 or 250 in shape. He just never looked it until you was in the ring with him. His hands and his wrists were thick. He had big hands, and he could wrestle, and he could have beat you any time he felt like it.
Yeah.
But I would attack him like a little pit bull. I'm going behind you, Robertson. Me and him. Now this is me and him having fun in the ring. I said, I'm going behind. And then he was, here I would come. I ain't been there yet. He said, all that's pulling backwards to left, and that was the kind of the joke with me and him, and that's how he was. That's how good he was. He could be working, and I could be shooting, and I still haven't got behind him yet, or took him down, or did none of that stuff. And it's just, he was an unbelievable worker, and he never had no problems working. They say Brett Lawson is the same way. He's a pretty tough MMA fighter, but he does favors for the guys in the wrestling business and no problem. Real tough guys don't have a problem because they know it's a work.
Right.
You know what I mean? So Billy was beating for the title or beating for the belt or doing whatever. Okay, that's great, no problem. He had no problem doing nothing. And he was a hell of a worker, and just the way he would put holds on you, he would put holds on you and get you out of them and do something, and people would think, wow, that was great. But he did it all. Tony Charles was another one.
The thing about I remember when Steve Regal first came to WCW, and I think he was influenced by a lot of Billy Robinson's work, and that was half his shtick. And back in the day when you worked with Steve Regal as Lord William, I mean that was what Steve did for 70% of his matches was put a lot of the green guys he was working with in holds, reverse them, put himself back in those. It'd basically be Steve wrestling himself with the body of another person, and he'd make him look like $1 million. Now, back in the day, you guys could all work, but when you're working with a Billy Robinson, and probably to a large degree, the whole roster, there wasn't too much said in the ring other than here or there, a high spot, because it was all work. You fill in the gaps. Guy puts a hold on you, you reverse it, you start working that hold. With a Billy Robinson, was it the same thing? I mean, all of a sudden this guy's just switching you in and out?
Yeah, and he knew, and it's a kind of like you just stay loose with him. I mean, you're not jerking you around or doing whatever. I mean, he takes a hammer lock on you and he goes in behind you and he drops over, rolls you from the hammer lock, spins around in front of your front face, locks you, and then looks like he's choking you. Yeah. You just go with him. It's a kind of like, how it works anyway. That's how it basically works. But most of them, they don't know what the wrestling part is. It's like you brought him up before, Daniel Bryan. He started down there with Danny Davis and OVW, and we had him in here with something else. That was his name when he was in here with Randy Hill, I think, in the Power Pro or whatever it was. And he worked, and I like to watch him. He's one of the few that I actually watch today. Maybe it's the size, but anyway, he's very good at it, and he can do it. Just doesn't seem right, but he can do it. Right.
Hey, so what was the spark or the beginning of what would become, the Lawler Dundee feud? And it seemed like every time I found a lot of your matches, and at the end of this interview, I'm going to give everybody these matches and some of the, the Loser Leaves Town match. I mean, just an early match, a bunch of stuff that you guys did. But what was it about you and Lawler that was so intriguing?
We wasn't in love with one another. Did we have respect for one another's professionalism and what we both did in the ring, or what he did? And he was always a hell of a talker. So he wanted to be the big dog. Well, technically he was the big dog. He was the king. I was the superstar. Kings have got to have a couple of points more than superstar. And he, yeah, you know what I mean? So he kind of lived like that. And I just said, okay, he's the top dog. I'm the next top dog. So, and we wasn't in love with one another. And Jerry would kind of, he wouldn't fire us up at one another, but he was, that damn Jerry Lawler said this, Bill Dundee, about your jacket or something. You know, then he would go along and say, Dundee think your crown sucks. Just silly little things like that. So you're going to the ring thinking, this son of a bitch don't like my jacket today. Oh, okay. You know, just, and he kept us a kind of, and there was a reason for that. Jimmy Hart told me that Lawler, Jarrett told him, they said, I have to keep Lawler and Dundee apart because if they ever got together and took the territory, they could take it. We never had enough brains to do that. Even when he went over back to the thing, he never came and talked to me. He asked everybody except me. So I kind of asked him afterwards, I said, well, why didn't you come and talk to me like you did everybody else? He said, well, you're Jarrett's boy. Yeah, but when you're talking about money and points in an office, that can change.
Right.
But I never got the chance to. So he just got the crew, and then me just figured, well, he'll stay with Jerry. But yeah, I'd get mad at Jerry. We'd do this and do that, or say this or say that. But if it hadn't been for Jerry Garrett, my little ass would still be in Australia. Bobby Shane called him. He said, yeah, start the paperwork. We'll get him here. It took a year. And then me and Barnes showed up here, and he gave us a $600 a week guarantee back then. We thought that was a fortune.
Man, that was a fortune. I remember when I rolled into USWA in 90, man, I was making either $15 or $20 a night. And you know the drives, and that was probably actually overpaying me. When you cash your check at Evansville at the liquor store we used to cash them at, and you cash in a $69 check for the week, that's kind of living a little bit on the thin side. I used to call that place the Nutrisystem territory because all the new guys that came lost weight because you couldn't afford to eat, and you knew where every buffet was in town.
Yeah, but look at the man that made you today. I know that we all say them stories. I mean, when I did the circus way back in the grill, we never got rich either. We never, they fed us, but we never had much money. But it makes you look what the dollar does for you.
Oh, no.
Look at Tommy Rich. I mean, Tommy, easy come, easy go, and was like it's never going to end, but it does end.
Oh, I always go on record saying, and that's what I was making. And then I remember I went back to Texas to turn heel against Chris Adams, and when Jerry brought me back, he gave me a $100 a night guarantee, and that lasted for a couple of months, and then territory took a nosedive, and we went back to whatever it was that he could afford to pay me. But when I look back at those days, riding up and down the road with the guys that I was riding with and working with the people that I was, and you know, that's almost, there's different periods of your career where you're just learning, and it's so fun because you always wanted to be a pro wrestler, and then you start to get kind of good at it, and then you're really enjoying that part of it, and then you kind of start making money, and that part's good too. So all phases, whether you're starving, learning, making money, or whatever, was a blast for me, just because I love the business, and I'm sure it probably was the same for you.
Yeah, I mean, I used to go to the fairs back in the day because that was all the work too. And with the circus and on the fairs, and I went to Sharman's boxing troupe, and I was always a little cute devil. I mean, I looked like a girl, I guess, with long hair and pretty face. But anyway, I would go and say, "Oh, that's a lot, big bastard." So I would stand in the crowd, and they would pick me, and I'd go in there and whoop the boy. And then when the people was actually paying at the Sharman troupe, they could never beat the guy. But they were working with me, and they were shooting Billy Robinson type guy, was hooking with the big guys and taking them down, and they were losing their $2 back then. So, yeah, I did it. Never really made a lot of money, but it's good stuff to talk about today, and it's a good education.
Hey, I was watching some of your matches on YouTube, and I know you had several scaffold matches. Now, way back in the day, I think it was 1991 or 2 at the Great American Bash, I got booked in my one and only scaffold match with PN News and Terry Taylor. And Terry Taylor was a good worker. PN News, at close to 400 pounds, had no business on a scaffold. Bobby Eaton was also in this match, one of the greatest workers of all time, and a super sweet guy. And then myself. And I got no business being on the scaffold. I'm not afraid of heights, but I don't love heights either. And then what they had done, Bill, they sent the wrong scaffold. So here's the reason, and Dave Meltzer called this the worst match of the year, worst worked match of the year. Well, when you got underneath the scaffold, they had sent the one where the tubes were so big, you couldn't wrap your hands around them. So that totally eliminated any kind of thing where you could hang from the scaffold and have a little jeopardy and some near catastrophes. We were relegated to staying on that platform. It sucked ass. We damn near killed the territory. But you've been in some great ones. And in particular, I'm going to give out the time code to the scaffold match between Bill Dundee and Sweet Brown Sugar, which was actually Coco Beware before it turned into Coco. It was a 2 out of 3 falls. June 21st, 82 Mid-South Coliseum with the referee Jerry Calhoun. Well, my question is, I read when you first got in the circus, you were working with the elephants, but then also I hear that you were a trapeze artist. Watching the scaffold match, the way you're swinging from that damn scaffold, dude, there's a couple of high spots where I think, man, this dude's about to die, and then you start climbing the thing like a monkey. Y'all do a do-si-do, almost fall off. I mean, it was a hell of a damn scaffold match is what I'm saying. So how'd you feel on those things?
Well, let's rephrase the trapeze artist part. I did the elephants, then there was a guy who did it. I said, is that hard to learn? He said, would you like to learn it? This is Jules Bullen, one of the Boone brothers. And he said, they did it. I said, well, yeah, I'd like to get up there. So when you're up there down on the ground looking up, it's like the scaffold. It doesn't look so high until you're up there looking down. So I go on that little platform, and they showed me the thing where you bring your legs back behind you and you let your hands go and the catcher you can do. I did about 3 days of that. That was my trapeze thing. I said, I don't think I want to be a trapeze artist. I just them somersaults and all them things. There's some things you know you can do and some things you know you can't. So when the guy wrote that in the program in Memphis, he said, well, what did you do in the circus? I said, well, I looked after the elephants, and I tried that for the trapeze. And I said the word is try it out. And he wrote trapeze artist. So being an artist, it means you can do it. And what I did, we were just learning.
Well, let's talk about the scaffold match with Sweet Brown Sugar for a second. Do you remember that match?
Yeah.
And y'all laid some pretty stiff kicks in on that thing, too. I mean, it was a great work. It was a damn good match. Did you like doing scaffold matches? Because, again, I'm not a fan. And you remember the big, the one that they did in WCW where Road Warriors and Cornette took the long bump and blew his knees out.
Yeah, that was Dusty. He told Big Bubba, remember Big Bubba? Yeah. He passed away, Bubba Rogers?
Yeah.
He told Jimmy, he said, well, Bubba will catch you. Oh. You can't catch a 270-pound tub of lard falling off a scaffold. Bubba just run out of the way, and Jimmy hit the ground. You saw what happened, blew his knee out or his ankle or something.
Well, you can't catch a human being at that kind of distance, much less 10 feet. I mean, you can kind of give him a cushion, but at that kind of distance, you'd be crazy to try to catch the guy. Ain't happening.
And you just can't. So that was that part. That should never have been enough. But Dusty, we called it the Night of the Skywalkers, and he kind of let everybody think it was his idea, which it wasn't. We'd done 20, and then, you know how I got roped into doing the first one, that one with me and Coco?
How?
Jerry Jarrett told me that him and Don Green had blown off a program with a scaffold match. I said, a scaffold match? He said, yeah, scaffold match. I said, well, what did you do? He did basically the same you do in the ring. He had backdrops and hip tosses and all kinds of things. So I said, no, you didn't do that.
This is a great story.
Yeah. He said, yeah, I did. Anyway, I have a tape of it. Somebody gave me a video of it. They were on a 6-foot long ladder, 2 6-foot ladders, and a plank across the top, and there was 2 guys holding the ladders. They never stood up. They sat on it and punched at one another. Don Green took the bump, he hung off and slid his feet down. His feet was 4 inches off the ground. Now that was what, and I played it on the bus. You may have been there when we played it on the bus going to Dallas.
I read it. I read the book. I can't remember if I saw the tape or not, but I read in the book that after you played that tape, Jared wanted to talk to you for a couple of days.
Yeah. So I played the tape. I said, look, I remember the scaffold match that Jerry said he did. Here it is. Somebody gave it to me. Oh, my God. But he was the kind of man at the Superstar, but he got over it. He shouldn't have bullshitted. But anyway, you know how he was.
Hey, and watching so much of the matches that I watched, and of course, going to TV there back in the day, and back in the day that loop was, Monday Memphis, Tuesday Louisville, Wednesday Evansville, Thursday Spot Show, and then get on a bus, drive to Dallas, and work Sportatorium Friday night, get back on a bus, drive to Memphis to work TV Saturday morning in Memphis, go get your car wherever you left it, go back to your hotel, take a shower, go to the Nashville Fairgrounds, work that Saturday night, maybe Sunday we was off. And watch, and that was the schedule. And then going to those Memphis TV tapings and watching all your matches back, listening to Lance Russell do the play-by-play, that guy was such a big part. And Dave Brown to a degree, but really Lance Russell was the guy who was the glue and all of the chaos and the mayhem and the great stories you guys were telling over there and the angles, doing the play-by-play stuff. How important was Lance Russell in your mind?
To me, this is the two announcers that I like the best. Gordon Sully was the best at calling the actual wrestling, go behind, take him down, do whatever, take away the head, the body will follow, and all that kind of stuff. He was very good at doing that. But Lance Russell was the best that talking to a guy, he thought for doing interviews, because when I got here, I started stammering like everybody else did, doing interviews on live Memphis TV, and Lance would pull the interview out of me and everybody else that couldn't really talk. Lawler was always seemed like he was a good talker, but, so, yeah, Lance was the best at doing that, and he came across as believable. What he said, you believe.
And another thing, when he got a guy out there who completely couldn't talk, he would almost ask the guy questions and then answer them for him. It was a real art. And a guy that was absolutely incredible. It was the one particular show that was dedicated to the Loser Leaves Town match. I guess it was the one in '83. Y'all basically spent all show, and it was y'all at the announce desk. You were beside Lance, and then it was Lance and Eddie Marlin, and then Jerry Lawler. A lot of tension, and you guys are going back and forth, and a couple of pull-aparts. And then there's another seated session where you guys are going through the paces and telling the story. You didn't give yourself credit in the beginning as a babyface promo, but as a heel promo, I really thought you were badass because you had that edge, you had that chip on your shoulder, and you were talking a lot of shit, and you were backing it up. And so I think your heel promos were outstanding. Don't you feel as a heel you talked a better promo than as a babyface?
Yeah, after when we kind of got going, but even in the heel ones at the beginning, Barnes did most of the talking and I would do the thing. And yeah, but here's the thing, and you know as well as I do, and I think it's kind of like a movie, more making a movie, I would imagine. I've never made one. But when I was a heel, I became this cocky little fella, Bill Dundee, and I believed in that cocky little fella, Bill Dundee, and that's what I portrayed to the people. That it wasn't really a work, that was me.
Right.
I mean, I would fight them if somebody said, "You little son of a bitch, I'll kick your ass." I said, "You may, but you'll be in a fight. You'll know you've been in a fight when you wake up, whatever, the next day, because I ain't laying down." You know what I mean? So, yeah, that was how I was. I was a kind of I would have rather been a heel.
Right.
I'm 70 years old now. I'm like being a babyface. But when I was, younger, I liked being the heel. And I really thought I could whoop Lawler. So, I mean, I would think, if this ever got real, I believe I could whoop him. Never had a crossword with a man, never even came to look like coming to a real fight. But I believed in my head I could, and I think he believed in his head he could probably whoop me. We've never had to find out. So I would talk just like that.
One other thing I wanted to ask you about, Bill, it was an interesting part. While you were down there in Tennessee, Jarrett decides, did he take the book from you or Jerry? But he gives the book to Robert Fuller. Robert Fuller starts bringing his end of the guys into Nashville, and the territory takes about a 6-month dive. So you guys need to do something to revitalize this thing, shoot a hot shot angle, which ends up being the big-ass concession stand brawl at Tupelo, Mississippi. How down was the territory? Was it in that bad of a shape? And obviously, the concession stand brawl worked. Take me through this period of time.
Okay, Buddy Fuller was Jerry Jarrett's partner.
Yep.
And that was Roy Welch's son. Robert and Ron Fuller, his Buddy's sons. So Buddy said, I'd like to take a little interest more in helping run the territory, blah, 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 when they got away from Nick. He said, well, okay, so he's bringing his son in to book it. Well, Robert, he had his little wild ideas. He had Tora Tanaka against the Mongolian Stomper in a main event in Memphis. two monsters. Memphis had never seen that type of thing and didn't really like it. I mean, he says, "Oh, them two big bulls hooking up and there and there and there." Well, it was unexciting. In Robert's head, it seemed like it was better than it really was in real life. So he had about a month of that, and it started going down and blah, blah, blah. So Jerry and Buddy had a little meeting, and I don't remember who it was at the office. He said, "Well, Buddy, do you want to tell Robert, or do you want me to tell him?" He said, "No, I brought him in here, and and it's not working, and we're losing money, and he's going back to Knoxville." So anyway, he went back with his brother to Knoxville, and he took half the crew with him. So now we have Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham as the Blonde Bombers.
Yep.
Sergeant Danny Davis is the manager. We're going to Tupelo, Mississippi, and we're shot everything in Memphis. So now we're getting this bright idea. We have Lance full time that can do the talking because he's not working for the TV station no more. He's working for Jerry Jarrett Promotions, so he can go anywhere and make TV. So we're going to Tupelo. We're going to do the tag team match, and they're going to screw us out of the belts. And when they screw us out of the belts, we're going to get into a fight with them, juice and all the things after, and blah, 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 and we're going to take that. That's great. Like 100 times before, we've done the big fight and did the things, and we get going, and blah, blah, blah. The heels run to the back. Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee is chasing them. They jump over into the concession stand. Well, we jump over into the concession stand. So now you're there. Look at Lawler, and he's tired, and I said, "What do you do now?" He said, "I don't know, but this may work." So he picks up a jar of pickles, and he just throws it at his cousin, Wayne Ferris. And I don't think he cared whether it hit him or not because they weren't in love with one another. But anyway, he ducks it, hits the wall, bam, now it's on. They pick something up and throw it back at us. And if you watch the tape, you can see the people that under Herman Sheffield and his wife, they're picking stuff up and running out of the damn concession stand with it and trying to save candy bars and whatever else they can. We have a hell of a fight going. So we're slipping and sliding. The floors are kind of wet, and we're falling down as much as we're standing up, but it's exciting.
So, are you telling me the concession stand brawl in Tupelo was a worked shoot, but it was not necessarily quote unquote planned?
Yeah.
Shit happened once you got there, and y'all just worked on the fly.
Right, technically. Well, a punch here, yeah. If we got over there, then we got into a fight. Good. If we didn't, that type of. So when Lawler threw the pickles, the people went, "Whoa!" And you can feel it when it's happening.
Yeah,
you know, when you've been in matches and you feel it. Oh my God, this is going to be unreal. And then Lance had shut the camera down, so you can hear him talking to Mike Shields. Was the camera operator. He said, "Mike, are you filming this? There's a hell of a fight going on downstairs." And they only had one camera, and so Mike has to get the camera and get it on his shoulder or whatever and point it downstairs and then film this whole damn thing. And Lance's commentates, "Come on, Mike, damn, get it. There's a hell of a fight." And that's strong words for Memphis TV.
Yeah.
Hell of a fight, back in the day, and damn. So we're falling down and fighting and doing all the things that we're doing. So then here comes Jerry Jarrett. He jumps over into the melee, and he says, "Come on, you got to quit fighting." So somebody nails him, and he takes a bump. So once we got it going, everybody just started working.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they tear Jerry's clothes off, they tear his shirt off. They just brutally demolished this guy's suit he had on. He just tear it like a real fight thing. Anyway, he escaped with his life type thing. When we fight, so then Eddie Marvin comes in and says, "Come on, get out of here." And Eddie gets me and Lawler out, and the heels are still in the thing, and Jerry's lying on the floor with clothes ripped off. So that was how we went off the air. But the thing that showed the mess was Lance had said, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Good night from the Tupelo Arena. See you next week." Close the show. Then you hear his voice black on the television. "Oh, damn, Mike, we're going, well, hell of a," and I just said, he starts it all up again, and the camera looks like it comes back on and all that type of stuff, and here we go. Was it laid out? Not exactly all what happened. Did we know if we go over there, that's what they were going to do technically? But if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. But it worked.
But let's bring it back to today's current day wrestling, because you said something about Lance Russell's language, which that was a little bit strong for TV back in that day. And basically, when you go back to the old television tapings there in Memphis, that whole show for years and years, and when I was passing through there, certainly, In regards to language, that was a PG territory. Nobody was cussing, carrying on. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of blood and blade jobs. But take that out of the equation, y'all had a badass show. So my point is, I mean, this logic or this style of booking could still be, a part of today's wrestling landscape, because y'all weren't doing anything crazy. You're just telling stories, but you presented it in a serious shoot style fashion. Now, many people knew the business was a work back then. Obviously, everybody knows it's a work these days. But my point is, man, if you just present wrestling from a serious standpoint, or that's your basis, is, hey, everybody knows it's a work, but you present a serious product, and not everybody's laughing and giggling and a bunch of BS storylines, that still works today.
Right. So, well, it's hard to do this kind of wrestling, but I have done this just for my entertainment and fun even today. Say I'm with a wrestling student that nobody knows, and we're sitting in McDonald's. You're sitting there talking to him, and then you do something stupid. You just snatch him up and do a heel. You son of a bitch, and I'll beat you, and just pull him up by the shirt and look like you're going to knock his ass out. Everybody in the store will go, oh, my God, because they think it's real. And it can be done that way on TV. I mean, like I said before, when Lawler put the crown on, he really thought he was the king. And I put that suit on, I thought I was the second coming of Elvis. So we was a superstar and the king.
Yeah.
And we believed it. So what we were saying, we was convincing people to believe it. But I would try to watch them today, and some of the interviews are just, that's exactly what they are. I don't know how they do it up there. Some people say they were bugged in the rear or this or that. You've been there, you'd know better than me. But if you let you be yourself.
Well, that was one of the things you just hit on. When Jerry thought I was a king, you thought you was a superstar. I thought I was Stone Cold. I believed it 100%. So, and again, I'm not going to be critical of today's product. I mean, I feel for the guys, because the guys are missing out. When you can go out there and just ad-lib a promo, and you're learning how to work, and all of a sudden you learn how to carry an angle, and it's dependent upon you without somebody just telling you every little thing to do and say, it takes you out of the zone, because you can't freelance and be as spontaneous as it would happen, almost like a shoot. And so I just feel that organic nature is missing from today's product, which would, I think, make it a better product. But again, not to harp on today's system. I still love the business, but I just harken back to those days when things were so much more simple, because human psychology and basics, good and bad, are not any different.
Right, and that's what we had in Memphis. We had good versus evil, and the people knew who the good was, and they knew who the evil was. So if we switched roles with me and Lawler, they would think Dundee was the bad guy. Whatever. Lawler, good guy. Do you remember this match? And in fact, you brought up what I was talking about a month ago, where we had the first blood match, and I got the juice and bled all over you?
Yep.
Do you remember why we did that?
No, I can remember.
Okay. That is the babyface cheating on the heel without actually taking the heat off the heel by getting him busted open. You busted me open. I bled on you. You had blonde hair back there, and I just rolled out of the ring and covered my head up. And he said, oh, he's bleeding. Then hold the babyface's hand up. Remember that deal?
Yeah.
That was what it was for. So that was the psychology in that 10,000 people, or whatever it was, at the building, or 5,000, wherever we was. And I actually outsmarted you. You busted me open with a gimmick or whatever. And then I get your head and bleed on you, and I just roll out and cover my head up, and the referee says, oh, he's bleeding. We bump the ref. He's down. He gets up, sees the juice all over you, and it has nothing to do with you.
Right.
So you and Jamie or Hart or whoever managed you could come out and say, no, that damn Dundee, he was busted open. We won, blah, blah, blah. Reverse psychology.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, those were a lot of fun days back in the day. So, hey, when are you getting on the road? You circus cranking up here in 2 weeks?
Yeah, about 2 weeks. So we'll be about the 27th of this month. Talking on the road before, my offspring was your manager for a little while. Do you remember them days?
Jamie Dundee, sure do.
I watched the tape the other day. He had a friggin' polka dot suit on, an outfit, a shirt, and a pair of pants, black with big yellow dots on it, and you long blonde hair and a robe. I thought, wow. It was just so simple.
It
but
was.
You had heat.
We had heat. I didn't know what I was doing, but we had a little bit of heat. It sure was, the training wheels were on, and I was soaking it all in. And again, I was lucky to ride up and down the road, work with you, ride up and down the road with Dutch and Chris Champion. And when I went back down to Texas, riding up and down the road with Bronco Skandar. Gorgeous Gary Young never got a great break, but he was a very good guy as far as psychology, and he's a journeyman, but a really, really good worker, and could teach what goes on in the squared circle, and he damn sure dropped a lot of information to me. So, man, I go back to those days being some of the most fun of my career.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Steve, and I don't really know how they do it today, but somebody has to like the person. Mark Ruin and I did jobs for them in Australia, and Bobby Shane, they liked me and Barnes. We worked hard. We did whatever they wanted, but they taught us shit. Well, Mark, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Watch the match. And then you're learning as you're going along. Now, me and you go along good, and we do things, and we're opponent, and I would talk to you, keep you from killing me, but no. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but I liked you. We go along good, and when you get along good with your opponent, it makes it a whole lot easier. Nobody was really jealous of one another. We just did what we did.
Well, it was a lot of fun. And, hey, man, I appreciate you talking to me today. And, again, I thank you for all the stuff that you helped me with back in the day. It was when I look back at some of those things, I watch I'm critical of the stuff that I did my last few years in the business in WWF. But when I watch some of the stuff I watched with you there in that Memphis studio, I just cringe. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that was brutal. So these days, when I'm trying to assess some talent that is new in the business, I'm pretty easy on them because I know how green I was, how bad I was, how bad I rushed things. But certainly, I lived, ate, and breathed the business enough so that I could pick it up and, present a hell of a goddamn match and something that you couldn't see through.
Right, but when somebody's telling you, well, Steve, you don't do this because, or you do this because, it makes it a whole lot easier than finding it out a year later.
Yeah, if nobody tells you, hey, kid, here's a heads up, you got to smarten you up.
That's right.
Hey, let's plug your website right now. And the book is, if you don't want the answer, don't ask the question. It's Bill Dundee's life story. Let's talk about that website.
It's Bill-Superstar-Dundee-Enterprises.com. And that's the only way you can get it. I sent you one and autographed it for you, right? Yeah. So if you want it autographed, just go to that website, Bill-Superstar-Dundee-Enterprises.com. And you can get T-shirts, DVDs, all kinds of Bill things. I'm on Twitter at Bill Dundee. And then I'm on Facebook. You can find that. So, and I have a radio show I do every Friday, 11 o'clock to 1. That's on Yahoo Sports, 7:30 a.m. in Memphis, Tennessee, every Friday morning.
I appreciate the time, Bill.
All right, Steve. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right, let's get some props to Geico for being a loyal sponsor of the Steve Austin Show. Go to Geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at Geico.com. Extra money in your pocket may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, I'm giving Sean a go-home cue, so let's wrap it up for this week. Make sure you check out PodcastOne.com and subscribe to The Steve Austin Show so you don't miss any of these classic episodes. Before I ride off in the sunset, I do want to throw out a couple of plugs. I still got a beer. It's the Badass Broken Skull IPA, the finest IPA in the United States of America, and that's the bottom line. Made by El Segundo Brewing Company. You can find Broken Skull IPA at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in Cali. If you ain't in Cali, you're probably SOL. And if you're looking to get a badass pocket knife, I got two for you. Cold Steel Broken Skull Knife, Cold Steel Working Man Knife. Get them at my Amazon store. Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin, or go to the Cold Steel Knives website and check out all their badass knives. Also, one more big shout out to all my sponsors to make this show possible. That's how I'm able to bring this show to you free twice a week. Please support them because they support us. For more info, check out the podcast description to this episode for details. Folks, I am on social media, Twitter and Instagram, at Steve Austin BSR. Folks, I'll be back soon, but until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.